Hi everyone, I'm Bijan from PM Exercises, and today we're doing a mock interview with Emrick, who's a community member at PM Exercises. We're going to do a product design question together. So with that said, we're going to get started. But first, I'd love to have you, Emrick, maybe introduce yourself to the community before we get started.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Emrick. I'm a product manager, and I have 5 years of product experience, and I'm currently working on 2B products. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, great. So the question we're going to be doing together today, it's a question for TikTok product manager job interview. The question is, how would you design TikTok for the older people?
Design TikTok for older people.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I will type on this document so that you can know my thinking process.
Awesome. Great.
Okay. May I ask a few clarification questions first?
Yeah, of course.
Clarification. Okay. So you mentioned that we are designing for the older people. May I know the goal for this design project?
Sure. So the goal, let me ask you actually that question. What would you think would be an appropriate goal in the case of TikTok for the older generation? What can you think of as like a goal that would be relevant?
Sure. So if I think about data metrics, designing for older people is not directly, it's not going to give us a huge impact on our revenue or data active user or retention. I would think it's more of a social impact improvement. We are trying to do good things. As our vision said, we are trying to bring creativities and more new content to everyone in the world. So I would say our goal is to improve our social impact and solve the pain point for older people that they are not able to use TikTok proficiently, if that's my assumption.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So, and when you say social impact, how would you define social impact here?
Good question. If we are going to use social impact as our goal, I think I will evaluate this in several aspects. One, how our target users are receiving the product that we designed for them. Are they happy with it? Did they meet our design goal? That will be one thing, because we are not thinking about retention or data active users. Two is about the message that received by the society itself. I will look at the coverage of medians. I will do user researches on our users in our communities that is not our target user for this specific feature to see how they perceive this information. I think that will be the two main ways that I will evaluate social impact.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. We can get started with that.
Sure. So our goal is social impact, and may I also know our concept for older people, because TikTok's target users is about 18 to 25. Are we talking about any users that is older than 25 years old, or are we talking about anyone who's 65 years old and above?
That's a good question. Let's say 65 and above.
Okay, 65 and above. May I also ask if we have any limitations for this project? Timeline, budget, or human resources?
Let's assume that we want to already ideally design something that can be shipped within less than 1 year.
Okay, so we already have. I would say we already have the infrastructure.
Yep, we can assume that. Yeah,
and the resource is sufficient. Okay. I will rephrase this question. So TikTok is going to design a version for users 65 years and older for a better social impact. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds good. I really like how you rephrase it in a way that's a lot more specific and a lot more meaningful. So let's go ahead and continue.
Thank you. May I also, oh, sorry, one question that I forgot to ask. May I also assume that we are going to focus on mobile platforms or web platforms as well?
That's fair, and it's an important question in the context of our target users. So for keeping things simple, let's assume that it's going to be mobile.
Okay. Design a mobile version. Okay. Then I think my next step will be I will describe my methodologies so that you can understand what I will do for the next, and then I will give you specific details about my plans. Okay. I will do a pain point analysis to see what are the existing pain points or future pain points that I might have for older people. Okay. I will do a simplified SWOT analysis to identify the priorities so that we can know that how are we going to do this prioritizations. I will do a simplified SWOT since we are not thinking about our competitors, and then I will identify user scenarios or use case, of course, with our target user group. And then I will design the app. Of course, we will design a verification methodology. I don't think we will need a go-to-market strategy here. Since we don't have a very specific goal for revenue goal or user daily active user goal here. Methodologies. And I will think of our risks or trade-offs. Okay, those will be the things that I'm going to do next.
Sounds good.
Okay, first, pain point analysis. I will analyze the pain points from 4 aspects: feature, content, user, and the UX design. So when we think of features, the main way that I will do the analysis is to do the comparison, to compare the differences between feature, content, user design needs and factors between younger generations, younger people that as our mainstream users to older people. What the differences? What changes are we going to make? As you mentioned before, that we already have an infrastructure and preliminary version that we have already built. I assume that we are using the resources that we have at this moment. So in terms of features, I would think it's in a way that users open from the user open TikTok to watch a specific video. So opening of the app, I don't think that will make any differences, and the selection of the app or selection of a content. I don't think that will also cause any issues here. Comment might be one thing here. The older generations might have issues, so I'll mark it here. Like. Yeah, I think that's all for the feature part. Oh, I think one thing that I missed is that I didn't identify the scope for this new app. I think we're not going to ship a full feature app to at our first version, and we are going to limit our scenario, the user scenario for our first app, to our key user scenario. So I think let's identify this as we are going to offer an app that is only providing video browsing, comment, and the like feature. Okay. We have already analyzed the feature about content and about like. We think that those are the two features that older generations might have differences in terms of the behaviors. And content. Content is the key part. We need to adopt the content for older generations interest. This will relate to the algorithm, related to the selection of content. Yes, I will leave those two here. Users. So when we think about users, we have two parts: the creators, the uploader of the content, and also the older generation themselves. So when we say users, we need to provide let me think about it. I think we do not need to think about the creator part, because generating the way that we generate content will be the same, but it's just about the content of it's just about the content itself. So we only think of the older generations, our target users. So when we think of users, we think of interactions between users. Between users, which is actually the common part. We also think of the user portfolio, the setting up of the for users. That's actually the selection of their interest for cold start. Okay. Yeah, I think that will be it for users at this moment. And for UX designers, visual older generation might need a bigger buttons, better contrast. We might also need to think of the screens and also the type of devices that older generations using, so that we can make sure that the new version is compatible with them. Because I think the devices might be different. Let me add a more section here. Performance. So compatibility. Yeah, I think that will be all the pain points here. Let me do a summarize about what we will need to do. Do you have any questions?
No, that's fine. I think you clarified kind of how the you highlighted what pain points are interesting to pay attention to. Let's see where you go next.
Okay, sure. So I'll do a summarize so that we can know that what we are going to do. So we are going to simplify. We are going to simplify like process. Simplify comment process. Or not simplify, maybe educate.
Just quick question to clarify. Are you describing kind of like the user pain points right now, or are you describing the solutions?
User pain points, and I'll do it in a way that is so. When we think of user pain points, I think we will initially have a solution in our mind. So here, I'm not going to draw a very clear line between pain point and the solutions here, because I think at this stage, what we need to know, the priority that we are having at this moment is to find out the directions about what we are going to do next, and also the priorities about our own strategies and also our development roadmap here.
Got it. Okay, sounds good.
And content algorithm and cold start for users, visual redesign, visually designed for contrast and interactions and feature interactions. Compatibility check for performance. Okay, so here we have our list of priority. We have our list of to-dos, and in prioritization, I would like to use a 2x2 matrix to identify which one to evaluate the cost and also the impact. So my way of evaluating this will be to ask the question that what impact we will have, or what will be the impact for user experience if we are missing this feature. So I think in this way, the highest priority one will be compatibility and visual, because without the proper design for the UX experience and also the compatibility, users will not be able to open this app at the first place. And then it's content. After user can open this app, if the content is not attractive, then the whole thing is meaningless. We will not be able to achieve our goal about bringing interesting things to the older generations. And the lowest priority is about comment and the like process. The like process is a feedback that we can collect from the users about their interest. But with our current algorithm abilities, we can also use other metrics for this, or we can simply remove this feature to a future generation instead of including it in our first phase as a part of our MVP. Okay, and so we already have identified our key user scenarios here, and we already have our prioritizations. And the next step will be the design process. So with the Word document, I'm not able to draw a mock startup. I will describe what I will do for the design itself. I think a few things I will do is in terms of the design is that I will remove all the features that is not related to the content to the building of the content itself. That will be one thing. Second, I will make sure I will enlarge the buttons and the color contrast for the existing sign up process, so that the origin, or maybe we can actually remove the sign up process, and the whole process for this feature can be open app and pop up the video that we tested and that might attract the attentions of the older generations. So the whole design for the app will actually become just the content of the application itself, just the content itself, and a button for the users to report any content that is not suitable for them. That actually will be the whole design. And the verification and the preparation of content, we'll do a simple user research to select, because TikTok already have older generations here at this moment in our community. We can select identify the number of content as our code start, and to see whether this content can be our code start for this app itself. So we have our plans for algorithm, content. We identify the code start. We identify the visual design, and the last step we will do is that we will collect the top 10 modules, the top 10 devices that they are using to see and to do the compatibility check. Okay, and we talked about verification methodologies, risk and trade-off. So here the risk here is that one, I'm not sure putting the device on a mobile, putting the new app on a mobile device it will be the best solution. because maybe TV will be a better solution, or maybe other ways. That will be one thing that we will need to dig deeper. Two is that our assumption here at this moment is that the adoption rate for how to use mobile devices, the older generations is weaker than the younger generations. This assumption might not be true. For example, maybe older generations is also keen at sending comments. They also want more interactions with the creators. There will be the second assumption that we will need to analyze. The last one will be competitor analysis. In the whole process, our assumption is that our competitors, TikTok, YouTube, they don't have a way for the older generations to view the content on their platforms efficiently, and if there is already an incumbent in this market, we might also need to consider the user behaviors, those incumbent platforms that are already generated. And my last thing that I will think is about the future plans. What are we going to do in the future to accumulate a better culture and also to accumulate a better environment inside this app, so that the older generations can keep using this platform instead of we are just providing a one-time solution for them.
Got it. Thanks so much for the answer. A couple questions I have for you is, first of all, how would you know if a user of the TikTok app is an older generation or not, like from the beginning?
Yes, I think I will use several ways to do this. One, a possible way is that so in the sign up process, everyone needs to input their age. So that's one way. And secondly, that we can use our algorithm itself to determine what the age group of a user based on their browsing behavior, based on their location, based on the devices that they're using, or based on the content, the age of content on their context. That will be two part. One, yeah, go ahead.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the only part that makes me wonder is there are, like today, for example, like at least in the case of iPhone, right? It is possible that you'd be dealing with a user whose data is not available to you. So, I think the concern that comes to my mind is, in order for us to build this like kind of customized user interface, right? In order for us to know whether or not it's the right time to present it, we need certain information that we might not have access to immediately. I'm curious to know, what your feedback to that is, and is there a way to go around that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think there are two parts here. So essentially, what we are discussing at this moment is that about the scope of data that we can access. Two scenarios. One, if the user give us the permission to its context, then we can use the existing users in the user's context to identify the use groups, to identify education level and other interesting points. Two, if the user doesn't give us any information, then I think the only thing that we can utilize is our code start. It's based on the initial behaviors of the users in browsing the content. On code start, I think the strategy that I will use is that since this version is a version for older generation, so I assume that it's very likely the user who downloaded this app or the user who's using this app will be an older generation. So our process for the code start will be to verify whether this user is older generation. So we will bias to the content that is older generations might be interested, and to verify whether the user is interested in the content that we provided.
Got it. Thanks so much for sharing that. Okay, great. So given that we have limited time, I want to kind of shift focus to giving you some feedback. First of all, thank you so much for providing an answer. Really well structured. I really liked how you started with good clarification questions that narrowed down the scope of your question significantly. Not only that, you actually rephrased the interview question that really presented how you were able to actually apply my answers into the process of narrowing down the scope of the question. So really well done there. Talked about methodologies, pain points, highlighted a few really good pain points, came up with a couple solutions. Couple areas that I was wondering if it could be more to be done. First of all, regarding the goal, I don't disagree with having a social impact. Maybe where I would have liked to kind of see you talk a little bit more about is maybe something like engagement doesn't matter at this point and why, right? Or you could actually talk more about how by focusing on social impact, you'd be driving engagement in the long run, right? So you can say social impact is kind of this North Star goal that if we can deliver on, it's going to deliver engagement. Or engagement doesn't matter to you, you share why that's the case, right? That was the one thing that I was kind of wondering, why social impact, right? I would have liked to kind of get more context. And you did provide a little bit of an information, but I think there's more detail needs to be provided just so that I feel comfortable that you have a strategic way of arriving at the right goal. Then the next part that I would say would have been interesting for me to kind of see you thinking more about and discussing more is really the user journey, right? And I think you did a pretty good job like highlighting some of the pain points, but another way you could have potentially gone about it is to say, okay, like, when I think about, a senior person like trying to interact with the phone, I can think about like the first step would be, somebody's probably suggesting to them to download the app because they're not the type that's they're just going to go to the app store and try to find an app. Somebody told them about it. Maybe they're in the context of like relatives around them, so they're downloading the app. Then maybe the first thing is once they download, somebody's like kind of explaining to them how it works, or maybe they send them a link that they have to kind of look into it and then download it. And then after that, we can talk about, I think you talked a little bit about the features that are relevant to them. Maybe we can talk more about a more senior person has not grown in an environment where social media was all around them. Maybe they're like less comfortable with expressing their opinions publicly in the social media. So that's something to kind of keep in mind because that's a different user behavior than maybe somebody who's like, a Gen Z, for example, right? And what I'm trying to say is I think highlighting what that user journey end-to-end looks like, it would be pretty interesting, right? Because along the way, you will probably identify a few pain points. And I don't disagree with some of the pain points that are highlighted here, but that like kind of user journey driven pain point discovery, it makes it a little bit more systematic in my opinion. And then like in terms of, the solutions, yes, I mean, I think there are a few things that you highlighted really well. And what I wanted to kind of see also at this point is, given that the very first thing that needs to happen in this kind of user onboarding is to identify that the individual belongs to this user group, it would have been interesting to kind of like talk a little bit about that, right? How would you identify that? And I think you talked briefly about that after I mentioned it, but there are ways that you can discover that, right? Like you kind of mentioned, maybe you can kind of look at the hand gestures as one way, right? Because I'm sure there's like AI, way of like kind of determining patterns of interaction between a senior versus non-senior, or looking at like, phone historical data, if there's anything available that'll give you a hint. But I think that's an important piece of information. And then the rest of it, keeping it simple, I think it's pretty interesting. And eventually, I think you can kind of do the evaluation the way you've done it. One thing I would have tried to do personally is to really separate out pain points from the solutions as much as possible. I think one could say that your pain points were basically the feature, content, user, UX design, performance, and then the solution was after that. But at that point, when you were at kind of listing out the 5 things that you highlighted in bullet points, I wasn't super clear if you're in the pain points phase or you're the solutions phase, right? You want to make that super clear Because ideally, when you're at the pain point phase, you're not even thinking about the solution so much, because for every problem, there are different there are different solutions that you can think about. So that's something that I would also highlight to kind of keep in mind, keep it as separate as possible. That'll make it easier for you. Thank you so much for participating in the interview. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun, like always. So hope to do more mock interviews together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Very useful.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. So what did you think?
Yes, I think I'm a little bit lost in the pain point part. I think, as you mentioned, I didn't separate the pain point and the solutions very clearly. I think that's very important in the future interviews. Yeah, I think the mock interview is very useful. I saw a lot of blind points that when I'm practicing it by myself.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's like exercising. It's like after you do, it's like learning how to swim. Like after you do a bunch of them, you kind of like understand how to do it. And like even if you get invited to your job and you're in a meeting or you're talking about like user pain points, somebody starts solving it, you're like, wait a second, like, we're still at the interview, we're still at the user pain point phase. So there are like, all these really beneficial values that you will get from it out of the line. But to be honest, I think you were very strong at the first part, right? By the way, I'm going to cut out all these parts. You were very strong at the first part, but I thought towards the once you got into the pain points, you could be more and more specific, and the solutions are ideally even more specific than that. So like you can like ideally very clearly say, this is what we're going to build. You know what I mean? Like this is exactly what we're going to do. That's the part that I think needs a bit more practice. But
yes,
it takes a bit of a time. It takes a bit of a time and practice, and I think over time, I'm sure you're going to do pretty well in it.